We start the bulletin off with the President William Ruto as he dismisses one term as empty slogans. President William Ruto has pushed back against mounting calls for his resignation through growing Ruto must go chants in street protests and social media posts. In an address at the Nairobi Securities Exchange on Wednesday, Ruto questioned the motivations behind the calls for his early departure, saying all Kenyan leaders have eventually exited office. And the past 2 years have seen deadly youth-led protests against Ruto's administration over the high cost of living, taxation, unemployment, government corruption, and his contested policy reforms. Ruto campaigned on a platform of reducing the cost of living and championing the ordinary Kenyans. But nearly 3 years since he assumed office, Ruto must go slogans have become a unifying rallying cry among demonstrators who accuse him of failing to deliver on his promises. Here are the full details on this story.
I hear my brothers and sisters say, let Ruto go, then we will figure out. To me, that sounds like the wash conmanship. One term, Kasongo, Ruto must go, is not enough. Just like those who were there before me. My time will come and I will go. What are your reasons for this Ruto must go? Because the more I listen, the more it is sloganeering. It's not about a plan, not about an alternative plan. If you seriously have a plan that does better on creating jobs than I have, that does better on education than I have, you should be bold enough to tell us. And I listen to him say, Kenya is a failed state. And I ask myself, so for 40 years, you have been working in a failed state. So you want to be president of a failed state? The critics may say I am wrong. The cynics may say I am lying. And the naysayers may even say I am mad. But what if they are wrong? And they are. What if I am an agent of destiny for the transformation of our nation, whose promise has been delayed for far too long? Some have accused my administration of over-promising or taking on too many challenges at once. This was deliberate to adjust the bar upwards. We have made peace with mediocrity for far too long.
As the president defends himself, his former deputy continues to castigate himself as Gachagua labels the president extremely confused on the Gen Z crisis. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says President William Ruto is a confused head of state who does not fully understand the challenges facing the country. Gachagua, who is on a tour of America, accused the president of deflecting rather than addressing concerns raised by the youth. His remarks came days after President Ruto told parents of Gen Zs that the police are not responsible for raising their children. And as leaders allied to the government back home continue to label recent Gen Z demonstrations as politically instigated by Gachagua and his allies, the former DP says the leaders are trying to run from the real issues. The Democracy of Citizen Party DCP leader dismissed accusations of political incitement leveled against him and opposition leader as a tactic to delegitimize the Gen Z protests, pointing to the government's failure to address the core issues. Here are the full details to the story.
He's a very confused person, extremely confused. When the Gen Z's protest started in 2024, he stayed after another 4 weeks, he said it's for the foundation. Do you remember? The other day, he said it's a church. He said the church, they are the ones who incited people, church leaders, nini. He went back again, he said it's the opposition. This Sunday, he said it's the parents. Yeah? He said it's poor parenting. William Ruto, please, can you make up your mind what ails your country? Instead of listening to the agencies, the issues they are raising, abductions, extrajudicial killings, corruption, misappropriation of public resources, President says, no. These people have been incited by Rigiji and Uhuru. You know, the president does not know the problem in Kenya. He has given 7 reasons so far. And it's simply because he doesn't want to accept that he has lost it and there is a problem, and address the problem instead of saying the boys and girls are being incited. If he was honest to himself and listened to the problems the young people are raising on behalf of the country, we will not be where we are.
When he gives me to speak, he's not giving me to speak because I don't know, I had I sit. How can you sit on a man like this? This is a man who is causing a whole nation not to sleep.
And away from Gachagua now to Murkomen accuses LSK of shielding terror suspects amid protest crackdown. And the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has launched a scathing attack on the Law Society of Kenya and its president Faith Odhiambo, accusing them of siding with criminals and seeking bail for individuals charged with terrorism. Murkomen, who spoke amid mounting criticism over the government's decision to charge violent protesters with terrorism, said the LSK was, quote, on the wrong side of history by focusing on defending suspects instead of standing with business owners and citizens who suffered losses during the unrest. And the government's decision to invoke Porter against protesters has attracted widespread backlash from political leaders, legal experts, and the public, with many terming the charges excessive and a tool to suppress dissent. And Murkomen defended the move, stating that the government possesses strong evidence to prosecute individuals responsible for the recent chaos. Here are the full details to the story.
Burning supermarkets, looting people's businesses. All those people are properly defined in the Prevention of Terrorism Act. On this one, she's damn wrong. Yeah, she's actually on the wrong side of history. She needs to quickly salvage her reputation by siding with criminals and terrorists and trying to defend them. I totally disagree with those who want to make it lighter. They want to make it look cheap.
And away from that now to schools risk closure as a capitation delay enters second month. And the public schools across the country will this week enter the second month of term 2 without receiving any government capitation of funds, deepening an already dire financial crisis that has paralyzed operations in many institutions. The Kenya Secondary Schools Heads Association has warned that if the funds are not released soon, schools may be forced to send learners home, risking widespread disruption of the academic calendar. Here are the full details to the story.
Schools must be ready for parents to pay for their children next term, because we cannot have back and forth kind of communication from the ministry.
Meaning at one point, the schooling system will collapse, given that in the previous years we also have undisbursed funds.
It means that this term they have not sent any capitation to schools, are merely coping with the circumstance, coping.
We've not been able to do the actual amount that is required, and we are working with Treasury to ensure that the shortfall that was not released is released, and come third term, the full amount will be released.
It's a structured way by the Ministry of Education to continuously defund the system, and they must come out to speak on this. If they are not responsible, then Treasury is responsible. As Parliament, we actually did work on the budget, and we gave out money for Ministry of Education.
Jana nimesikia serikali inatangaza kwamba hawana pesa ya kupeleka kwa mashule yetu. Sasa kama hizi pesa ya shule ndio imetumika kutembea kupanda mandege, na kupeleka michango mingi kwa mikono kwa wananchi, na mashule yetu haina pesa.
That now to 44 billion Lindsay finance bond slammed by Nyoro as debt trap for the future. And Kiharu member of parliament and Ndindi Nyoro has cautioned that the 44 billion shilling Lindsay Finco's bond meant to fund the construction of the Talanta Sports Stadium is a new secret way of burdening Kenyans with expensive debt. Nyoro, who is also the former Budget and Appropriations Committee chair, says Kenyans will end up paying up to 100 billion shillings for the loan. Here are the full details to the story.
Now the government is coming up with these kind of facilities so that we do not seem like our debt is growing, whereas we are basically having another secret book of debt. One secret book was fuel levy. The second secret book, of course, is now this one for Talanta. The maturity of the board in the next 15 years, Kenya will have paid interest rate of 100 billion for a loan of 44.8 billion Kenya shillings. And I'm here wondering, if that cannot make us agree as Kenyans, then what would? Now you are making a generation which is to come for the next 15 years to be born with a price tag of a loan of a money they actually don't know where it went. And I can tell you without breaking of an eye that these kind of mechanisms you see, the experienced officers in the National Treasury do not even support it.
From that now to respect the hierarchy, Mbadi tells Sifuna amid ODM leadership wrangles. And the Orange Democratic Movement is experiencing a rising intense tensions as Secretary General Edwin Sifuna comes under fire from former party chairman and current Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi. Speaking to Ramogi political desk, Mbadi chastised Sifuna for making divisive remarks and urged him to respect the party's leadership. And he's quoted as saying, between the party leader and the Secretary General, whose decision is final, Mbadi questioned, affirming Raila Odinga's ultimate authority in ODM. Mbadi also revealed that cabinet secretaries who accepted positions in the Kenya Kwanza administration did so with Raila Odinga's full knowledge and approval, and after extensive consultations with President William Ruto. And he continues to say, I am glad to, he clarified those are his personal opinions. Mbadi said, dismissing Sifuna's recent remarks as a representative of the party's official stance. The Treasury CS also stated that the current collaboration between ODM and the Kenya Kwanza government will continue until 2027, after which Odinga will determine the party's political trajectory. Meanwhile, Sifuna has openly admitted that ODM is struggling with internal contradictions and a lack of ideological clarity, leaving both members and supporters unsure about the party's stance on critical national issues. And speaking on Citizen TV's The Explainer show on Tuesday night, Sifuna, who also serves as Nairobi Senator, admitted that ODM no longer speaks with a single voice. And these are the stories that are making headlines in the dailies, and we started off with the Daily Nation, as the Daily Nation headline this morning is Raila puppet or ODM rebel, with a big question mark and a picture of Secretary General of the ODM party, Edwin Sifuna. Now, intrigue. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna has constantly dismissed his party's association with the government, contradicting his boss Raila Odinga. Now, he has declared the ODM-UDA deal dead days after Mr. Odinga affirmed it. Is he a rogue official or the mouthpiece of his party leader? That is a story that you'll find on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Among other stories include why MPs probe into organs trade stalled. Claims of sabotage have rocked the investigation into suspect Medhill kidney surgeries. That is on page 10. As well, puzzle of woman strangled to death in hospital. Susan Njoki died hours after admission to a city hospital. An autopsy reveals she was strangled. That is a story that you'll find on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And Shah latest crisis hurts patients. 18.5 million number of Kenyans who have registered with SHA according to official data. Now, private hospitals are threatening to suspend critical services including cancer treatment, dialysis and chronic surgical procedures following months of delayed reimbursements from the Social Health Authority, SHA. That story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation. But also the Cabinet Secretary of Health, Aden Duale, is pictured in the front of the Daily Nation. In education, junior and senior schools face fresh teacher headaches. An acute shortage of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, in short STEM teachers, could undermine specialization in the learning areas, a new report has shown. That is a story that you'll find on pages 5 of the Daily Nation. But also, CBE Connect is your pullout that you'll be finding in the Daily Nation this morning. And CBE Connect, basically, that is around the education sector. And also, because today is a Thursday, you will find your property pullout in this Daily Nation this morning. I am from the Daily Nation now to the Standard. What does the Standard say this morning? Rogue Nganyas is a headlining story in the Standard. They roar through Nairobi's streets like kings without crowns. Matatus with no number plates, no rules and no fear. Racked by political muscle and hidden behind shell companies, these rogue vehicles are turning public transport into a circus of impunity. And while ordinary Kenyans are crushed under the weight of traffic laws, the powerful rests above them, literally with DJs, drugs and dance floors on wheels. This is anarchy in motion, sanctioned by silence and blessed by the highest officers in the land. That is a story that you'll find on page 4 of the Standard. And the president's son in the biggest font that there is. Now, with George Ruto's just launched Mood Matatu now flaunting the rules, with regulators and traffic police turning a blind eye lest they get into the bad books of the first family. That is on the page 4 of the Standard. These vehicles belong to who's who in government. The NTSA Act of 2012 is supposed to regulate Matatu fabrication, but enforcement has failed. It's hard to impound a vehicle owned by a senior official's child. Dixon Mbugua, Matatu Operators Association, is quoted as saying. And of course, Mood is pictured here as an example of one of the vehicles that they are talking about. And its number plate is Mood without a clear registration plate. Now, President William Ruto's son, George, right with a fan during the inspection of his Matatu Mood at a garage in Nairobi. That picture is in the Standard this morning. Among other stories, civil servants must use public hospitals. A bill in Parliament has gotten approval from MPs that will see all government workers forced to use local hospitals to make services better. That is on page 7. Probably also the hospitals will become better in that move. But as well, wave of unrest hits schools amid exams pressure. That is on page 8. And Safaricom hits 50 million customers. And that's almost the entire population, of Kenya. And business page 18. But if if Safaricom hits 50 million subscribers or customers, does that mean that only around 2 or 3 million Kenyans are children who aren't able to get access to SIM registration? That is a question just to ask yourself this morning. And that's the dailies.